Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this week's virtual water cooler. I'm Kristen, and I have Frank here with me, and we're going to be talking about measurements for productivity today. We'd like to encourage participation. You can either use the little hand icon that I believe is located in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, or type an answer in the chat box. A question in the chat box. We'd love to hear from you. And without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Frank.
Oh, thank you, Chris. All right, guys, welcome to this episode of Virtual Water Cooler. Today we will be focusing on measuring measurements for productivity. When I was thinking about this, originally I had an idea of what I wanted based on some, client interaction that they asked me some specific questions around this, and it got me really thinking. And I actually was talking to Chris about this, and I think we might break this up into a two-part series, just because I think that there's a lot to be had there. So we'll be on the lookout for that, because I think we're definitely going to do that. So I want to really start off with what I want to be covering today, and then what I won't be covering regarding the use of tools and things like that. I'll mention tools in the use of them, but not any specific ones. That might be something we'll do as the second part, or part of a series regarding this, because there's enough interest in this. So I'm going to be talking about the reason for why we would measure productivity, or how we classify the use of measuring for productivity. And I think that the best way to start with that is going to actually be, if I could have everyone take a moment and take a look at the first poll regarding productivity. Chris, would you mind kicking off the first poll for me? I only want to do one of them. There we go.
Okay. How do you measure productivity of employees?
And so what we're focusing here on is are we taking on the term productivity, and how are we using as a unit of measurement? What is it that you guys are currently doing? And I ask that you give me your best guess if you don't know yourself, but I definitely would like to see what you guys are. And give a minute, because we got some people that just came in. So folks, what we're doing here is taking our first poll to just kick us off in a little slightly different from our usual format, but I wanted to ask how people are defining productivity today, right? Are they using hours worked, session time, like the time they're logged in? Is it time tracking with hours worked? Is it task oriented? Or do you have some unique value system that you're using? All right. Chris, let's go ahead. Oh, you want to give them another minute?
Yeah, just if everybody can type in their answer in the poll, and then I'll close it out. That'd be great.
Sweet.
Okay.
Perfect. Awesome. So this is a really interesting item here, guys. That all of you feel that objective-based scenarios, or how you're currently doing that today, or how you're attempting to make that happen. And I like to hear this. Far too often I've been asked, especially being in an end user computing environment world like we are at Forthright, I've been asked by multiple customers to provide reports on people logging into systems, or the times of day, and this, that, and the other. And while I think those have unit of measurements and they should be tracked for other reasons, that's probably not the most effective way to determine whether someone is classified as being productive. I think that just determines whether or not they're on your system, or or those kind of things. And so by using objective-based, task completed, that kind of stuff, I think we're on the right track here. The difficulty with objective-based or task-based is that it really puts into question whether or not how organized you are. So if you're not using tools for proper, project management, some sort of task-driven event, whether you're using Kanban boards or ticketing systems, or some sort of IT service management, these type of things usually are what are required to really have your task-oriented or goal-oriented type of objectives defined. Secondly, I think sometimes people just make the assumption, especially us in IT. We come in and we have a job to do, right? I'm an architect, I'm a system administrator, I'm a help desk person. I come in, I answer the phone, and I'm done for the day when the clock hits 5. And because that's what we were told as the unit of measurement from before. So when we're talking about measuring productivity, I think that one of the things that we have to first think about before we jump into the tool conversation is whether or not we have defined these object-based tasks in the first place. And so, when we thought about this, we think about, well, I immediately start leaning on those tools I just mentioned, right? ITSM, TSA, whatever you guys want to use as your tracker, if you will. But ultimately, what people really gravitate towards when we're thinking about goals or objective-based is whether or not it has been articulated to some sort of desired outcome. And I think this is a little different than what most people are really concerned of, because you may be only one cog of that larger orchestration of cogs, right? I don't do everything that there is at Forthright, right? We have a sales team, we have back office people, we have front end people, we have people that are picking up phones, these kind of things, and I'm just one of those cogs. And so, understanding what the goals are from an ongoing basis, we can just say, service customers. That could be what Forthright does. We service customers. That's great. That is, if that was the only thing that we were focusing on, it becomes very, very difficult for actually measuring productivity that way, because who's to say I didn't service a customer? And so when we're talking about objective-based or goals or things like that, I was actually really hoping that someone was going to select the unique value system, because I think that this is where culturally, organizations are moving into, and it's really going to showcase the value of any organization. Forthright, one of the things we focus on is something our mission statement is exceed expectations, and so the first thing to be able to measure is, well, what's the expectation you're setting in the first place? And you can leave that up for interpretation, but if you do, then you'll never exceed anything. So taking advantage of setting an expectation, having those defined clearly, and then doing better than that, right? Or that's how you can exceed your expectations, and that's a process that we go through internally to ensure that happens. And so there's communication on what these goals are, and your piece of that, of your cog, your wheel that you represent in the greater outcome. And that's really where there should be some more focus. And I have to be honest, folks, I don't actually see a lot of organizations taking the necessary time to do that. That's not to say that they don't do that, and I'm not calling any particular organization out. I'm just merely indicating that what we have seen, through this side of the glass is that folks have these systems, these ticket systems, these project management systems, and people are assigned tasks. And I think that if you really polled your staff in IT and whatnot, they may just feel like they're a doer, a wrench turner, as I like to call them. Where they're given this nut and a wrench, and they just do their thing. And you know what? That doesn't take it from a macro level where you're actually looking at folks, and that may be all you need them to do. But I can promise you that even in something as trivial as the drive-through window at a McDonald's or a Burger King, those folks have their importance, and they could just be, you need to give the person on the other side of that drive-through window their Coke and their burger as fast as humanly possible without error. That could just be it, or it could be part of the fact that their value system is I don't know, whatever McDonald's is, deliver love or something like that, and they're just part of the experience that they're trying to drive. And so when you're looking at this, you want to really be you may have to probe a little bit from the executive team or other business units, and just say, look, I know you've given me these XYZ tasks. I just want to know the value or the impact. Use words like that so that they can understand what you're trying to do as an individual, to elevate your own game, to elevate your own department, your team, those kind of things, and really shift the situation to what the ultimate goal is. Otherwise, we are just going to be task doers, and someone's going to give you task 1 through 100, and you either get it done or you don't get it done. And again, those are all great things. There's nothing wrong with them, and you may just be that cog that is ill-informed or not provided. But let me shift the conversation slightly different and talk about how if that's your unit of measurement, why not have things done faster, better, with greater quality, those kind of things. And now that might seem a little touchy-feely or maybe subjective to some degree. The truth of the matter is, though, they don't have to be. organizations like American Express is an example. They service customers, and they try to create their own interpretation of what that servicing a customer is, and they use industry scores like NPS and CSAT scores. For those that don't know, it's a Net Promoter Score or customer satisfaction scores. And they have these systems, these auxiliary systems, to measure the effectiveness of the individual teams and their actual use, and that's how they're measuring productivity, right? They could have just as easily said, well, we have 1,000 calls a day and we answer 1,000 calls within 30 seconds. That sounds good. Thumbs up, everybody. And you know what? For some people, that actually may be the measuring stick. But what I can tell you is that if that's what happened, if I called American Express right now and they answered the phone within sub 30 seconds, and they were not able to help me, or the person was rude, or the person was ineffective in delivering what I needed, or I had to call back because we got disconnected, they could have called me, or this, that, and the other, and they didn't connect those dots together. Was it very productive? Probably not. I mean, we could have sat on the phone for an hour, and I was just waiting as somebody was picking their nose or something. And so what I'm saying is that make sure to provide context when you're thinking about the objective base or the task based type of solution. Just ensure that the folks that are receiving those have the necessary elements to be effective. Otherwise, I think what's going to happen is they'll be able to, or let me rephrase that, I've seen happen is that they complete the task and that is it. I think that many of us instinctively we care for completion, right? That's why there's a beginning and an end. The story has to close, right? And we hear that a lot in our world. There needs to be closure, and this, because that, as human beings, that's something we gravitate towards. And so if you just give someone a list, they can do it, but then there's a lack of fulfillment, and that may not seem like something that could be something you want to measure, and it may not be. But I will tell you that there are enough studies that show that fulfillment and employee engagement lead to greater productivity. Like numbers are in the 55% was one of the more recent ones that I saw from Gartner, right? Something like 55% of employees that are engaged. I'm sorry, a 55% productivity increase for those for employees that are engaged versus those that are not engaged. And when you think about the cost or the value to get employees engaged, really didn't cost a whole lot other than a little extra. Hey, this is your role in this bigger picture. Sell the vision, that kind of stuff. And that's where leadership and sometimes technology to kind of showcase all that as a whole is important, because using the use of tools and things like that, like an example of American Express, CSAT scores or Net Promoter Scores are the tools used to showcase the effectiveness of individuals' efforts. And so, I ask that you pause for a moment and think about how when we talk about how we do our measuring of your productivity, think about those things in general, right? So I'm going to pause for a second here and actually allow Chris to move to some of the poll questions. And I actually want to open up the floor to anyone and see whether or not, while the polls are going on, as to whether or not you feel that, am I hitting a nerve? Am I on the right path for some of you folks? Are you seeing some of these things? Did maybe I overgeneralize on what you meant by objective based, or are what I'm stipulating now is in alignment? I'm curious to kind of just get a feel for those that are in the room right now. With that, Chris, if you can open up the polls for the next questions before we move on. And anyone that would like to comment, either chat, raise your hand. We'll see that here. Post a question, and I'll be more than happy to unmute you and go from there.
Okay, here's the next poll. As you're looking to implement productivity and monitoring tools, will you be communicating this intent to your staff?
Yeah, so this is going to be interesting to see where you guys fall on this. So organizations are looking at different tool sets, and as IT, we're commonly considered the bad guys, the big brother, those kind of things, and we're just doing what's being asked in many cases. And so I'm always wondering, when it comes to change management, one of the elements people forget often is the communication element. And so I was curious to know how people are handling this aspect of the productivity monitoring, especially in the remote workforce. We got a 50-50 split. I like that. So for those that are going to be communicating to the staff, again, to the first half that I mentioned, and I'll cover more in the second half here, is define purpose. Purpose is a big deal, and if we can ever tie it back to culture, which I'll be covering more now, that will be really, really helpful in your process. For those that don't know, I think that's pretty self-explanatory into itself, right? You may not be part of that decision-making process, or maybe you are, and you're debating it. Hopefully, some of the information I provide you here, or ask the floor. There's several of us in this session right now that would be more than happy, I'm sure, to provide context. Let's go ahead and I think there's one more right there, Chris. Yeah.
Yes. Are you currently using productivity measuring tools? If you answer yes, we would love it if you could just what they are in the chat box, just so we have an idea.
Yes. So we currently are, as I mentioned at the intro here, we're going to be taking this into a multi-part series. And what happened was that we started getting asked about specific tools actually throughout this entire water cooler series, and also outside in the workplace. And so it would be really great to know which ones people are using out there, because Forthright's going to be taking the time to actually doing some research across some of these. And as I mentioned, when we cover the tools aspect of productivity management, we'll kind of go through some of the ones and make sure to reach out to you guys for the ones that have commented yes. If you said yes, please feel free in the chat or the questions. If you don't want to share to the public, bless you. If you don't want to share to the public, just hit the type it in the question, and I'll make sure that it doesn't get shared. But just so we know, it'd be really helpful to know what it is. And so with that, I kind of actually want to take this the second poll question and kind of carry on from there. And it really goes down to why we want to communicate in the first place. We find ourselves in a position where this can be a very touchy subject. I'm sure if someone approached you and say, I want to track what you're doing on a daily basis and know whether or not you're productive. Well, if that's how you came across to me and you told me that, I would have I take some personal issues for sure. Thank you, Jonathan, for that. I appreciate that. And I can tell you that me personally, I would feel almost offended to a certain degree. I don't offend very easily, but you're understand that when you do that, when you come across that way, you're attacking someone's integrity. And now some people may not care about integrity. I don't know why, but some people may not. Us personally here at Forthright, myself included, I mean, that's actually one of our core values. Integrity is something that we preach on an ongoing basis. And so, you want to be able to provide someone that type of respect and give them the benefit of the doubt as to why you were going to go about doing something like that. So some advice for those that are going to be communicating, please make sure that you always tie it back to mission, vision. That's a big deal. And always keep your culture in mind, whatever that may be. Now, you don't know what your culture is like, or that's very difficult to explain, or you have multiple subcultures within your organization, that kind of stuff. Those things can get a little complicated in this, that, and the other, and hopefully you have the proper success management is that to be able to properly figure that out. But keep that in mind. If you just come across as we want to know what you're doing, I think that's more of a reflection of the person asking the question than the person that you're asking the question to, because it indicates that you're disconnected. And so just keep that in mind too. So any managers that are on the call, I don't know your titles or anything like that, but I speak a little cautious, right, when you're coming across and indicating something to that degree. What I can tell you that we have done at Forthright is, as we've implemented new forms, because of obviously how remote work changes things and how it impacts, you don't have the ability to just touch someone on the shoulder. Hey man, everything okay? Hey, is there any help you need, or this, that, and the other? You have to change that frame a little bit, because you're using technology and you're using video conferencing and these type of things to actually indicate whether or not someone needs help. And so I would approach it in that manner as an example. So we personally, when we have our, one of the tools we use internally is a PSA tool, which is what we do for our time tracking, task tracking, issue tracking, problem management, all that jazz, right? It's our ITSM for Forthright for our clients that we use for our clients and whatnot. And so what it allows us to do is track work to be done, right? Now, if we stopped it there, that would not be very, very good. So we also, being a very high user experience focused organization, we try to tie back everything we're doing back into, survey submissions to the end user, solicited and unsolicited, using different tools that we have for this kind of stuff, and then being able to tie that back to the effort, right? And that's how we'll measure productivity. So for us, it's based on our value system. Did we exceed an expectation? We set one. Did we beat it? Did we get a good score in reference to the way we service them? And does the system reflect that type of effort in terms of a great user experience? And so with those three unique values, we're then able to generate our productivity scores for our team members and be able to, to help our own individuals to actually, critique or guide, if you will, through the needs within inside of our own organization. Now that's a very difficult conversation to have over an email. And so I would also recommend that if you're going to be communicating to your staff, indicate that, indicate part of your mission vision. Have a town hall followed with an email, or an email then followed by a town hall, and call out directly some of those things. Regardless of how uncomfortable it could be, I think as direct as humanly possible is the way to go. But I would be cautious about rethinking about why you're measuring someone's productivity. And that's what I'm gonna close off with. Before I open up the floor again, is the why are you measuring in the first place? There needs to be a trust element, and people respond better to a certain trust element. Now, obviously, if it's gonna, talking about lives on the line or this, that, and the other, obviously there's stakes at certain things. But the truth of the matter is that when you're talking about productivity, there may be a lack of trust that's there. And you think to yourself, well, I run this team and they're low level or this, that, and the other. And if that's something you're thinking about, maybe you want to take a look at your own hiring practices. That could definitely be something you should, maybe there's a cultural problem that you need to address, right? In terms of even in the subculture within your own team. And again, for the managers or coworkers in the room, I would just, keep that in mind. You need to really have that trust. But there are reasons to monitor and manage productivity. There's a reason for that. Setting priorities. Priorities are a big deal, guys. Indicating to folks you're looking or monitoring, measuring productivity because you want to be able to help in prioritization of work. It's one thing that is not always up to the individual, and that's something that we have to communicate on a regular basis. I know that for my team, they do not dictate priority. The customer does dictate priority, and then once that is now fed into our system, we then dictate priority based on workloads, urgency, impact, a lot of other factors there. But the bottom line is that all of those are used into a combination to determine priority. And then that way, it's a really easy conversation with your coworkers, employees, and things like that, where you can turn around and say, hey, I need you to shift priority to this versus that because of X, Y, Z reasons. Now, once you understand that you're all using the right measuring stick, then there is no conversation, right? If there's missing information, then add that to the measuring stick so that way you have that going forward. But I just, right before this call, I had this session. We had our afternoon stand up, and one of the things that was asked was just make sure that you flag the right priority for me, and I do what's necessary. And I think that's important when you're thinking about that, and use that as one of the reasons why you're measuring productivity. If it's all about watching what you're doing and this, that, and the other, that's going to be a really hard pill for people to swallow. And so I don't think that's the right way to go. And I think it's not that you get more bees with honey thing. It's really more of, I think that just as individuals, understand why you're doing something. Always do something with intent. Always do something with purpose, and you'll find that you'll have better outcomes overall. And if the outcome of why you're doing this is punitive, well, then there's something wrong culturally with your organization. I think that you should really double check that. If it's used in a positive manner, right? And again, providing help is an example, incentivizing, although be careful with incentives. I find this to be a double-edged sword in many cases, but incentivization, praising, holding true to your values as an organization, goals within the organization. Heck, even performance reviews, tying it back to an individual's performance reviews. but again, in a mentoring fashion as opposed to a punitive fashion. And that might be a session all to itself that we should have, but just be mindful of that. And then I'll leave with this when it comes to tools. Don't fall into the gimmicks, guys. There's a ton of tools out there. I mean, endless amounts of tools. And there's a tool for anything you can possibly imagine. Okay. Please understand that a tool is nothing more than regurgitating the information you give it, right? They may have fancy charts. They may have fancy ways to do it. I know one of the people that commented, indicated that they're just using, it looks like a Google Sheet to determine, productivity. That's awesome. And please know that those efforts are more than appreciative that you're doing things like that. It's a step in the right direction, and it focuses on what you care more about is the outcome. Tools, again, if once you have your outcomes defined, your why you're doing it, the why is answered, then all the tools in the world start making more and more sense. You start adapting them to what you need them to do, and you're able to then showcase them in a better light with your staff, yourself, and the organization as a whole. And I highly recommend that be the case. If it's just a way to take out a ruler and start smacking people around, openly and publicly through some sort of failed gamification or some sort of bad badge system or whatever it is that people are coming up with these days, I ask that you pause, and as IT, the implementer of many of these tools, I would say, look, guys, share your concerns. Say, hey, you don't have to drop Forthright in the mix. Just that, hey, have we done this? Have we thought about why we're doing this? Why, what are we going to do with this information? And if the first thing is to call out someone that's not doing something, well, that right there means that you have the value system of that particular system is not properly associated. And I really mean that, and I'm not trying to take away anything that you're doing personally, other than just know that use positivity as a way to generate the outcomes you're looking. When you cater the experience, and this is a design function, so here's a little bit about our UX practices here at Forthright. Telling someone what to do, this isn't the army, that doesn't work that way. What you do is you create experiences that people gravitate towards, where the behavior is then dictated based on the experience you give them. If you want people to plug in information into a time entry system, you can make it easy, simple, stupid, all that jazz, but you want to give them intensification. You want to give them reasons for why this effort is going to lead to the outcome you want. And if you think that's pandering, I'm sure that sounds that way, but it's not the case. You change the experience to get the outcome you're looking for. That's how you deliver results. And so tools don't give you that. Tools are merely a way of showcasing that. I have a minute left. I'm going to open the floor for everybody. Thank you all for listening to me. I know sometimes that I can ramble, and I apologize for that, but this is a topic that I've been getting so much interest in that I feel it's important that we discuss that. I will do a shameless plug for our next water cooler series, and that's for increased hours put by remote workers. I think it's something that we need to be thinking about, and especially as IT, we need to provide that information to those folks. I want to talk about that more. With a minute left, I will leave the floor open for any questions, comments, concerns, feedback. I'll take them all, good or bad. I'm always up for it. I can dish it just as well as I can take it. So let's do it. And for those that joined today, I want to thank you all for making a stop in your day to come out to the virtual water cooler. It's been a great series, and I'm so happy, and I'm really hoping that we can continue this for the long run. With that, I'll leave it back to you, Chris, unless there's any questions.
Anyone have any questions? Last call.
Going once, going twice. Last call. What is this? The happy hour?
Exactly. All right, well, I guess we'll close it out then. Thank you so much. Feel free to email any follow-up that you think of later or questions to either Frank or me, and we will follow up with you. And otherwise, we'll see you same time, same place next week. Thanks so much.
Take care, everyone. Thank you so much.